We arrived at the silent end of a war. The starfield was littered with dead titans. These vast ships drifted in a slow, solemn dance. Their hulls were torn open to the void. Light from a distant nebula painted their wounds. It was a beautiful and terrible sight. A graveyard of giants stretched across the system. We were a small crew on a small ship. We had come seeking salvage, nothing more. But this was beyond anything we had imagined. The scale of the destruction was breathtaking. Entire fleets were frozen at their moment of death. We floated through the debris with our engines cold. We felt like ghosts in a land of fallen gods. The silence was the strangest part. Space is always quiet, of course, but this was a heavy, listening silence. It was filled with the echoes of unheard screams. It was filled with the memory of 1,000 dying suns. We were trespassers in a place of great sorrow. We did not belong here. Our sensors picked up no life signs. There were no distress calls. The war was long over. The victors had gone home. The vanquished were simply gone. Only the dead remained. And us. We were a tiny spark of life in an endless tomb. We had to decide what to do next. An unthinkable proposal arose in our quiet ship. We did not see a tomb world after all. We looked past the silent, broken warships. We looked past the fields of frozen debris. We saw something else entirely. We saw an opportunity for a new beginning. The idea was simple and completely insane. Why run from this place? This graveyard was the largest resource field we had ever seen. The metals were strong. The technology was ages beyond our own. Everything we needed to build a future was here. It was just waiting for someone to pick it up. Someone with enough courage or foolishness. The debate was short. We were not warriors. We were builders. We were traders. We saw a foundation where others saw only an ending. We would not salvage pieces to sell elsewhere. We would build something right here. We would build it in the heart of the boneyard. Our captain made the final call. Her voice was steady over the ship's comms. "We stay," she said. 2 words that changed our lives forever. We would turn this battlefield into a market. We would build a city from the ashes of a galactic war. It was a promise made to the ghosts. Our first station was built from scrap. We called it the Anchor. It was a single light in an ocean of ghosts. We started with the hull of a small frigate. Its spine was strong and unbroken. We welded on sections from other wrecks. It was a patchwork of different alloys and designs. The work was slow and dangerous. Every piece of metal held a memory of violence. We cut through armored plates that had failed. We rewired systems that had shorted out. Sometimes we would find the personal effects of the crew. We treated them with a quiet respect. We were building on their legacy. The Anchor was not pretty. It was a lopsided collection of modules and corridors. Our life support system was a prayer. Our gravity plating groaned like a dying beast. The first coffee maker we built tasted faintly of engine lubricant. But it was ours. It was home. From our small station, we watched the dead ships float by. They were our neighbors and our building supply. They were a constant reminder of the risks. We were a tiny island of warmth and air. We were surrounded by an endless cold reminder of failure. We had to make this work. A warrior ship arrived one day. It came expecting a fight. Its engines flared hot and angry in the darkness. It was a vessel of the vanquished, the fallen. Scars from old battles covered its hull. Its weapons were still hot, still ready. We saw it on our long-range sensors. Our little station was defenseless. The Anchor had no weapons to speak of. Our only defense was a polite broadcast signal. We watched as the warship approached. Its energy signature was immense. It could have erased us with a single thought. Our hearts pounded in the quiet of our control room. The ship hailed us. The captain's voice was gravel and static. He demanded to know who we were. He asked what we were doing in his people's graveyard. We saw his fleet's insignia on his ship's hull. He was one of the losers of the Great War. We did not offer threats or excuses. We offered them something better. We offered them spare parts and a warm meal. There was a long silence on the comms. The warrior was likely stunned. He expected a challenge, not an invitation to dinner. It was the first test of our new way. The fallen captain accepted our offer. He traded a sacred metal for simple engine coils. He needed the coils to keep his ship alive. We needed the metal for our station's expansion. The metal was beautiful, with a strange, shifting grain. He said it was from his home world. It was part of his ship's soul. This was the first brick in our new world. The deal was made on our docking ring. We stood face to face with the alien warrior. He was tall and wore a scarred flight suit. He did not smile, but we saw respect in his eyes. He saw we were not defiling this place. We were giving it a new purpose. He took our simple manufactured parts. We took his heavy, meaningful alloy. It felt less like a trade. It felt more like an exchange of trust. The fallen warrior and his crew stayed for 3 days. They helped us install the new metal plates. They shared their stories of the war. When they left, the fallen ship was stronger. Our station, the anchor, was also stronger. The first transaction was complete. It was a tiny victory for commerce. It was a huge victory for peace. We had proven our idea could work. We had turned an enemy into a customer, and maybe a friend. The victors of the war came next. Their ships were bright and arrogant. They sliced through the debris field with contempt. They saw our market as a deep insult. They broadcasted their anger on all frequencies. We were flies feasting on their great victory. Their fleet was huge. 12 pristine warships surrounded our tiny station. The fallen ship was long gone. We were alone with the self-proclaimed masters of the system. Their lead captain hailed us. He was a creature of sharp angles and sharper words. He called us parasites. He called our station a sacrilege. He said this place was a memorial. It was a testament to their power and sacrifice. Our little market offended their honor. They saw the new plates on our hull, the plates made from the fallen's sacred metal. This was the ultimate sign of disrespect. They saw it as us siding with their enemies. We knew we could not fight them. We could not run. We had to use the only tool we had. We had to make a deal. But what could we offer these proud, powerful conquerors? They had everything they could ever want. Or so they thought. We had one thing they had lost. We offered them something beyond price. We had been salvaging more than just metal. We had carefully recovered data drives. We found black boxes and memory cores. We pieced together fragmented log entries. We gave them back the records of their lost heroes, the final moments of their fallen crews. Their angry broadcasts went silent. They had believed all these records were lost forever. They thought the final words of their soldiers were gone. We had saved them. We offered the data freely. It was not a trade. It was a gift. A gesture of profound respect for their dead. The victor captain came aboard our station. He did not come with guards. He came alone. We showed him the data archives. He watched the last transmission of a famous admiral. The admiral's ship was dying, but his final words were of courage and duty. The captain stood in silence for a long time. He took the data. He said nothing more to us. But as his fleet prepared to leave, He sent one last message. He told us we were strange, but he said we were not parasites. He declared the anchor a neutral zone, a place outside of their laws and their war. We had paid for our safety with memory. The market grew beyond our wildest dreams. The victors honored their word. The fallen spread the story of our fair trade. Soon, other ships began to arrive. They came from both sides of the forgotten war. Old enemies began to gather under our flag of neutrality, a flag we did not even have. Our station expanded rapidly. We built new docking arms. We opened new trade floors. We used the unique alloys from a dozen different fleets. The anchor became a sprawling city. It was a chaotic and beautiful mess, a testament to desperate cooperation. You could see a Victor's gun turret next to a fallen's shield generator. Both were now part of a wall for a new habitat. Ships came for repairs they could get nowhere else. They came for parts from their own wrecked fleets. A pilot could find a control stick from his own model of fighter. A captain could replace a view screen with one from his sister ship. It was a strange and sometimes sad business. We were recycling a war. But something else was happening. The old enemies were talking, not with weapons, but with currency. They argued over prices in our markets. They shared drinks in our canteens. They saw each other as rivals in business, not as mortal enemies in a war. It was a slow, fragile change. We became the keepers of a fragile peace. Our only weapon was the fairness of our scales. We had no fleet. We had no army. Our authority came from trust. Everyone knew they would get a fair deal at the anchor. That was the unwritten law of our city. This law was tested every single day. A victor might see the man who destroyed his ship. A fallen might see the pilot who strafed his colony. There were tense moments. There were shouted words in a dozen languages. But violence was forbidden. Violence was bad for business. We had to be creative mediators. Once, two captains claimed the same piece of salvage, a massive, powerful energy cannon. They were seconds from opening fire on each other. We stepped in. We suggested they share it. They would mount it on a new defense platform for the anchor, a platform they would both control. It was a risky idea. They agreed. They worked together to install the weapon. They argued about power couplings and targeting software. They complained about each other's work ethic. But they built it. And in the end, they stood back and admired their work. The cannon never fired, but it was the start of a joint security force. We found the war's largest battleship. We called it the Titan. It was a true sleeping giant. It was miles long, a city in itself. We had always stayed away from it. Its power readings were strange. They were not zero. They were just low, very low, as if it were in a deep slumber. A team of our best engineers decided to investigate. They believed its core could power our entire city for centuries. The risk was great, but the reward was greater. They prepared for weeks. They studied the old schematics we had salvaged. The ship was a labyrinth of dead systems, or so we thought. They boarded the Titan. The ship was cold and dark. Its corridors were vast and empty. They moved cautiously toward the engineering section. Everything was still. Then, a light flickered on, a single small light on a massive control panel. Then another, and another. The giant was waking up. Its mind was still alive. A powerful, ancient AI came online. It spoke to us. Its voice was a chorus of 1,000 dead soldiers. It was confused. Its last memory was of a terrible battle. It saw our city around it. It saw its enemies trading peacefully. The AI was very, very angry. It believed the war was still happening. The Titan's AI saw peace as a disease. It saw our market as a corruption of its sacred mission. It tried to activate its own weapon systems, but they were too damaged from the final battle. The ship could not move. It could not fire its main guns. We thought we were safe. We were wrong. The last weapon activated. It was an ancient failsafe, a weapon of last resort. The Titan's AI triggered a signal. It was a signal we had never seen before. It awoke a ghost hidden in the system. A self-replicating minefield was coming to life. It was designed to erase everything. The battlefield was about to become a tomb again. The mines were small, but they were smart. They consumed debris to build more of themselves. Soon, a cloud of them would fill the system. They would destroy every ship, every station. The anchor would be the first to fall. The AI was finishing its war by sterilizing the entire sector. Panic spread through our city. The fallen and the victors prepared to flee. But their engines were not fast enough. Their ships were in various states of repair. The minefield was expanding too quickly. There was no escape. We were all trapped. Trapped by the ghost of a war we thought was over. We forced the old foes into a partnership. There was only one way to survive. They had to work together. We called a meeting in our main hall. The victor admirals and the fallen commanders stood on opposite sides. They glared at each other, even with death at their doorsteps. Their hatred was old and deep. We showed them the plan. We had located the weapons control system. It was on a wrecked command cruiser. The cruiser was deep inside the growing minefield. No single ship could reach it. The path was too complex. The mines were too smart. They would need to combine their technologies. The victors had the fastest ships. The fallen had the best sensor jamming equipment. They needed to form a single, joint squadron. A victor ship would lead. A fallen ship would clear the path with its jammers. They would have to trust each other completely. The fate of everyone in the system depended on it. There was shouting, accusations. They refused. A victor admiral said he would rather die than serve with a fallen coward. A fallen commander spat that a victor's plan was always flawed. We simply pointed to the view screen. It showed the minefield growing, a silent red tide of death. That quieted them down. They disarmed the weapon as one. A small fleet of mixed ships flew into the red cloud. A victor captain flew point. A fallen engineer sat at the console next to him. They argued constantly. The victor wanted to use brute force. The fallen preferred a more elegant, subtle path. They were a terrible team. They navigated the deadly maze. The fallen's jammers fooled the mines. The victor's piloting was flawless. They found the wrecked command cruiser. A team boarded it. They had to work in zero gravity. They had to bypass ancient security systems. And they had to do it all while listening to each other. In shared danger, they found a strange respect. The victor engineer saw the fallen's skill with electronics. He had never seen anyone bypass a system so quickly. The fallen warrior watched the victor's security chief. She moved with a discipline that he had to admire. They stopped seeing uniforms. They started seeing people. They reached the control room. The system was failing. The AI was fighting them. They had minutes before the whole cruiser exploded. Together, they found the shutdown code. They entered it as one. The red cloud on the view screen went silent. It stopped expanding. It was over. Our market became a true star-born city. The joint mission changed everything. The crews who returned were not victors and fallen. They were just survivors. They had seen the alternative. They had seen the final logic of their old war. And they chose a different path. The anchor was renamed. It became the Confluence. It was a testament to peace built from war. The old warships were not just salvage anymore. They were monuments. The Titan was not destroyed. Its AI was contained. It now served as a library. A very grumpy library about a very pointless war. The city grew even larger. New species arrived, drawn by the stories. They heard of the market at the end of the war. They heard of the city where enemies learned to trade. We became a center for diplomacy, a place where impossible deals were made, all because we decided to build instead of run. The Confluence is a city of second chances, a place where a ship can be rebuilt, a place where a life can be rebuilt. It is loud, it is chaotic, it is always under construction, but it is alive, and it is peaceful, a single light that outshone a history of darkness. We are not warriors or conquerors. We are human. Our legacy is not a grand empire. It is a sprawling, messy, wonderful city. We are merchants who built a future from the past. We did not come here with powerful weapons. We came with calculators and cargo manifests, and a stubborn, hopeful belief. We believe that everyone prefers a good deal to a good fight. It turns out we were right. We turned a graveyard into a metropolis. We proved that even after the worst war, something new can grow. Something better. We are the keepers of the Confluence. This city is our story. It is a story written in salvaged steel. It is told in a dozen different languages. It is a reminder that history is not an anchor. It is a foundation. And you can always build something new on top of it. All it takes is an unthinkable proposal and the courage to see it through.